Hello, everyone, and welcome to this very important opportunity to learn more about mass housing, which a lot of folks in Massachusetts may have heard of, but don't really understand the details about, and it's something a lot of people can take advantage of. So here we are today. I'm Katie OConnor Ives, the state senator for 7 communities in the Merrimack Valley. We're at the Salisbury Police Station, and we thank them for letting us utilize their community room, which is a really great asset. And I have with me today experts in the housing industry. We have on my right, we have Lisa Fiandaca. She is the Mass Housing Director of Homeownership. Thank you for joining us this morning. And to my left, on my far left, we have Kevin Wallace, Realtor and Sales Manager, RE/MAX on the River. And on my immediate left, we have Jennifer Brennan, Senior Loan Officer, Fairway Independent Mortgage. So I'm sure that with these experts in my company, we're going to be answering a lot of questions and walk away knowing how we can empower ourselves and utilize mass housing opportunities. Now, at the very onset, I want to better understand exactly what is mass housing.
Well, thank you for this opportunity, Senator, for Mass Housing to be here in Salisbury. Mass Housing is the state's affordable housing agency. Sometimes I'd like to say we're the state's best kept secret. Many people have heard about us, but may not know exactly what we do. I'm here today to speak about our home ownership opportunities. As the state's affordable housing lender, we offer mortgage programs to income-eligible buyers. So what does that mean to a consumer here in Salisbury? You can purchase a property with a mass housing loan with income as high as $139,000 a year. We serve low to moderate income borrowers who may want to purchase with as little as $0 down, buying a single family or a condo, or 5% down buying a multifamily property as well.
You know, I wondered about that because my understanding too is that it was county specific. Might the income levels change depending on what county you live in?
Great question. Yes, they do. And our income limits, and there is a tool on our website, which is masshousing.com, so that a consumer can go and look at the income limits for each county, because we do lend in every community within the Commonwealth. Okay. Last year, Mass Housing originated over $500 million in first-time buyer programs and people who are refinancing or buying for their second time as well. So we're not just for first-time buyers.
And I wonder, how is it different from, you know, you have a regular bank and folks know their local banks and they think that's probably where I should go. How is mass housing different from a regular bank?
So we sort of act as the investor. Mass Housing offers the mortgage programs, and we set the guidelines. We work with about 160 banks, credit unions, and mortgage companies who have access to our loans. So they actually offer them to the consumers. Consumers, if they're a first-time buyer, have to take a home buyer education class, and there are classes that go on every evening and weekend across the Commonwealth, and they can also take a class online. Our credit unions, banks, and mortgage companies all offer mass housing loans, and they can get a mass housing program to purchase and to rehabilitate property as well.
I can actually remember taking the first-time homebuyer course in Newburyport, so I know that there are tons of local options where we could have walked to where the class was being presented. So I also wondered from our real estate experts, why is now a good time to buy?
Well, I think interest rates are low, obviously, so it's an ideal time to buy. Our challenge has been inventory, and we're not the only community struggling with that. I think every community in the Commonwealth is really wrestling with that issue right now, although we're starting to see an influx of more and more inventory. So I think there's going to be somewhat of a leveling of the playing field, because up until this point, it's been somewhat of a seller's market. But as more inventory pours into the market, I think it gives buyers an opportunity to perhaps step back, take a breath, evaluate the choices that they have, because they've had very limited choices up until this point, and really make good, sound decisions without feeling as though they're jumping into the deep end of the pool without having an opportunity to really evaluate their options. So I think for that reason, it's a great time to jump in.
Speaking about knowing what you're doing and not making any missteps, could you explain for folks not only what is a buyer's agent, but why does it make sense to have one versus going out on your own?
I think that it's a very challenging process at any time of year, but I think that consumers need advocates to help them maneuver the process because it has become more challenging and much more aggressive. The landscape has become very competitive, and I think in order to navigate the field, you need a professional that understands the marketplace, that understands the rules of the road, as it were, and can advocate effectively on behalf of both buyers and sellers. So having buyer agents or selling agents in your corner and using a realtor professional, I think is critical to the process, and it just, I think, makes it easier all around.
So I imagine the question that's on every viewer's mind right now is exactly how can someone access a mass housing mortgage to purchase a home?
Sure. So to access a mass housing loan through our lending partners, and Fairway Lending, who's here with us today, is one of our top lenders. But again, through some of the local banks and credit unions and mortgage companies, we'd suggest that a consumer start with the first-time homebuyer class. That's the best place to start. Learn about the entire process. Ask a lot of questions. Don't be intimidated by all the acronyms that we all use every day. Stop someone and ask them to explain the process to you, but get that pre-approval in your hand from a lender. And always asking about all of the affordable programs that are available to you so that you can make your best choice. You always want your choices of the mortgage programs. I hope mass housing is one of the choices for purchasing your first property.
And Jennifer, I'd love to ask you, how do you interact with mass housing? How do you work together for the customers?
Thank you again for having us. So as Lisa mentioned, we're a participating lender for mass housing. So when a buyer comes in or they've attended a home buyer education class, then we'll work with them to develop their budget, talk about the pre-approval process, evaluate their credit, and see if they fit the criteria for a mass housing loan. There are lots of options that mass housing offers, whether it be the 0% down for buyers that make 100% of the median income. There are programs that allow you to go above that, like Lisa mentioned, the $139,000 here in Essex County. And then there's great programs for multifamilies and even for veterans who may not qualify for a straight VA loan because of certain criteria, whether they're not married or something like that. They have amazing programs, and we bring those to the consumer for mass housing.
And in terms of the here and now, do you think that the interest rates are good? Do you expect them to go up? How does that factor in terms of whether or not someone should really find the time to study up and move forward or not?
That's a great question. It's certainly the interest rates are very volatile right now. They tend to change, they can change quickly, and we are, what we say, in a raising rate environment. A lot of factors that go into that. So if you've been pre-approved at a specific interest rate and rates continue to rise, it's important to make sure that that pre-approval is updated to reflect the higher interest rate to make sure nothing's changed with your qualifications. So we're definitely in a raising rate environment. The predictions are that they're going to continue to raise throughout this year. They have leveled off a little bit, but there is quite a bit of volatility, so we try to monitor those as much as we can for our buyers.
You had mentioned pre-approvals. Could you talk to us a little bit more about exactly what that is and why that's going to be a critical tool for folks if they're shopping around for a home?
Absolutely. So to get a pre-approval, we're going to look at a few different things. We're going to take a loan application. We're going to pull credit, look at employment, do income verification. And the reason that's so critical is when you go to find a home, you need to make sure that it's in your budget and that you can close on that loan. So there's no sense going to look at a property until you've been through the pre-approval process. Emotions can get in the way very quickly. So you fall in love with a house, and then you talk to the lender after, and you find out you may not qualify. So the pre-approval process really is the standard. I mean, and to enter into an offer on a property, you really do need a pre-approval. A lot of listing agents won't accept an offer without one because, as Kevin mentioned, it's a very competitive market. So to have all of that kind of done up front, look at the income, look at your employment, your credit history, there really shouldn't be any reason why that purchase can't close unless there's something to do with that property. So it's really, it's good for 120 days, and it's really the best way for a buyer to go into the market.
That's very helpful. Thank you for that. And because you had mentioned veterans, I was wondering, there's a new loan product I understand that would be helpful to veterans and service members?
There is, thank you. Mass Housing's loan program, Operation Welcome Home, I think is a perfect program for first responders who may be veterans, but may also be current service members, maybe reservists or National Guard members who may not have access to VA home lending. Operation Welcome Home allows someone to purchase a property with 100% financing. So they get a 97% first mortgage and a 3% second mortgage from Mass Housing at an only 1% interest rate on that second mortgage. So where else can you borrow at 1%? So to be able to purchase a single family or a condo with no money down and maybe getting some assistance as well on top of that.
That's very, very important because a lot of our veterans and people that are either in the reserves, they are also first responders, and they have very unique needs in terms of their limitations with location and where they might have to live. And we know it's only getting more expensive to live in our neck of the woods. I was wondering, too, in terms of Salisbury and the lower Merrimack Valley, Kevin, do you have a sense that things are only going to be a wise investment? Do you recommend for folks that may qualify for mass housing focusing on certain towns or certain types of housing, or is it more important not to wait for the perfect circumstance and just get something, given that things are only going to become more expensive?
Sure. I think it's important to realize that there is no perfect situation. So I think life is really all about trade-offs and sort of identifying those things that are important to you in the home buying process. And prices are vary dramatically from community to community, and there are certainly opportunities to be had in many of the communities in the lower Merrimack Valley. So, I think it's worth researching, working with a realtor to sort of identify what communities have inventory that fits your need, but more importantly, getting pre-qualified ahead of time so that you're looking at properties that fit your budget and that might meet what you're looking for as a home buyer.
One of the things I recall about mass housing, but correct me if I'm wrong, is that once you get your mortgage from you, it doesn't get sold to anyone else. These things don't shift and you don't have to track that change. So is that one amongst many examples of how you're different than a regular bank?
Yes, that's a great point. Once a lender originates a mass housing loan and we purchase that loan from them, so what that means to a consumer is they're going to make their mortgage payment to mass housing. We're located at 1 Beacon Street in Boston, so they're making the mortgage payment. They're calling local people if they have questions on their bill, on their real estate taxes, or on their insurance. But also, in addition to that, as you said, what are the other things that make us unique is we have a benefit called Mortgage Insurance Payment Protection, MI+. So if a consumer should lose their job during the first 10 years of the loan, or in the case of Operation Welcome Home, a service member becomes deployed, Mass Housing will pay up to 6 months of principal and interest while they're unemployed or while they're called to active duty. They don't pay us back, and we don't add anything onto the loan. It's automatic for every loan that we insure.
And that leads me to another question. This is not an independent agency that's funded by taxpayer dollars, right? Could you tell us about that?
Sure. Mass Housing receives no taxpayer dollars for our mortgage programs. We're a self-supporting state agency. We actually raise funds for our mortgage program through the sale of tax-exempt mortgage revenue bonds, and we also sell loans on the secondary market. But as I mentioned, we still retain the servicing on all of those loans.
And what if you're a family or an individual who's not in the market for a new home but wants to improve an existing home? Are there products in those instances as well?
Yes, we can actually help someone who wants to refinance a property that they currently live in, rehabilitate a property. So oftentimes, whether they're purchasing and looking at a house that may not look like all those homes on HGTV, or they're living in a property that may need a new roof or a new bathroom, our rehabilitation program can help with that. We also have second mortgage programs. So whether they have a Mass Housing first mortgage or not, we offer a home improvement loan, a loan to de-lead property, and also to repair septic systems, which I know is something that within this community may be of benefit to many consumers.
And now the questions are really percolating. So for those more niche opportunities, are those also earning specific and income specific to access?
Yes, all of Mass Housing loan programs are specific to borrowers who may not have access to other loan programs throughout the Commonwealth. So as I mentioned, our maximum income that we can lend to is someone who makes up to 135% of the area median income. So for Essex County, that's $139,590. And our second mortgage programs also have specific income limits. Those income limits can all be found on our website, masshousing.com.
All right. And so, in an instance where you don't qualify, could you talk to us about some other opportunities for people to be able to navigate and have the best outcome?
Yeah, so Fairway Mortgage, we're located in Newburyport. We offer, any type of conventional financing or FHA financing, VA, USDA. All of those loan products are available through our company. We always try to work with our home buyers to make sure that we are presenting all the options that they do qualify for, so that they can make an educated decision depending on what their needs are at the time.
And I'm also wondering too, I'm kind of hung up on the income question. Let's say that you do qualify when you purchase the home, but then for whatever good circumstances, your income goes up. What happens then?
Well, that's one of the great things about getting Mass Housing loan. You just need to be income eligible at the time of application. After, if your income goes up, that probably just makes it a lot easier for you to make your mortgage payments. But we're not coming back to you at any later date.
And could you talk a little bit about down payments for people that feel like they meet that threshold, but in terms of their savings, they just haven't had that opportunity?
Down payment, I think, continues to be something that many consumers struggle with. Coming up with $10,000, $12,000, it's a lot of money to save. So our loan programs, if you're buying a single family and condo and you're making in Essex County, under $103,000 a year, we have 100% financing. So you don't even need a down payment. You do need some money to put down when you're making an offer on the property with the realtor. But as far as a down payment, we will finance up to 100% of the purchase price. But on a multifamily, you'd be looking at putting down 5%, and that would be for a 2, 3, or 4 unit property.
And this may be actually a question for all of you, because everyone has a different relationship with their credit score. Some people may have had issues in the distant past, let's say more than 7 years ago. Some people may have, as recently as last month, maybe missed a payment and now there's a little smudge on their credit score. Could you all comment in terms of how the credit score interacts? Because I'm assuming that once you do buy a home and you do make those consistent payments, it has the potential to help.
It's a great question. Credit from the lending process is a big driver of what loan programs are available, what your interest rate will be, if you need mortgage insurance, what that cost will be. So the credit score, because it's looking at not only your payment history, but also, what other liabilities are you responsible for every month. So if your credit score is challenged, that could impact your rate and make it higher. Your mortgage insurance premium could be higher. Each loan program will have a minimum score requirement. And so depending on that, they may be income eligible for a Mass Housing loan, but they might not have the credit score required for that program. So then we would look to put them in a different program. If there are challenges, if there was a payment that was missed just recently, it'll probably impact the score. As more time goes on, then the score will be less impacted by that late payment, but it does stay on there for 7 years, so it will have an impact for that length of time. Kevin?
It's less of an issue for us simply because if we're doing our jobs properly as realtors, we're having the conversation from the very beginning about the importance of getting pre-qualified, meeting with a lender, directing buyers to Fairway and having those conversations early on so that they know what to expect when they step into the field.
And if you want to add to that, on top of that original question, I'd love to be able to get more background in terms of situations where you must see instances where people buy, maybe it's a starter home, or they purchased a home and then they're like, oh, but I actually like that home I just saw and I just bought this home. If you could offer any guidance in terms of smart investment on perhaps just sticking in for a certain amount of time, or that shouldn't factor in this market. I know that sometimes because the inventory is tight around here, people might buy something they might not otherwise, thinking I just need to get something, and then that right thing does come along. So I'd love to hear about the credit score and about what people should do in those circumstances.
Sure. So as far as the credit score goes, we'd also encourage anyone to get a copy of their credit report. So they can go to annualcreditreport.com and get a free copy of their credit report. Every consumer should know what's being reported, all of your credit cards, any car payments, student loan debt. It's important to know before you go into a lender what to expect. So I think that's one of the first steps that someone should take a look at. As far as investing and when you're purchasing your first home, I think at Mass Housing we would really encourage you to look at this as this is your home that you're buying for your family versus just an investment to make the next step. Although this may be your first home, you should be looking at it as a first home that you can afford today and for the long run. So if the market does change and you needed to stay there longer than you expected to, that's still something that you're able to do. You may have that dream, as you mentioned, of I'm staying here for a short time and then I'm going to be selling it, or I don't know when the next property comes on the market. But for the time that you're purchasing it, it should be something that you're purchasing for your family to be able to stay in for a long period of time, whether you choose to do that as time goes on or not. The affordability is just extremely important.
I don't know if you had thoughts on that question.
About the investment. I mean, we look at the home purchase as an equity builder for potentially as families grow and change, using that opportunity to help purchase the next home. So, I mean, I agree with Lisa 100%. We want to make sure they're in the right home from the beginning, but we also look at it as, how is this going to help you make maybe the next home a possibility down the road based on how much you're putting down, the location. Families are changing. They're growing, or that maybe they're downsizing. So how can you use that purchase to use as an equity builder for the next one?
And to echo what Lisa and Jen said, we encourage buyers to treat this as, as an not only an investment, but really as a forever home, even though it most likely will not be. We want people to be settled, we want them to be comfortable in their homes, but we realize that this may be a stepping stone for them. There also may be tax ramifications with selling quickly as soon as you purchase a home. So you really need to defer to your financial advisor or your accountant to find out, what those ramifications are, if any, before making the next step. Because you may be limited to the time frame in which you stay in that home before you move on to the next one. So, all of those factors come into play.
Thank you. And I had a clarifying question for you. In terms of that maximum earning of $139,000, is that by household? And could it be, for example, you have one spouse who's earning almost close to that and another one who's not earning? Is it combined household income? How does that work?
That's a question, Senator, that we get quite a bit. Mass housing income for us is income for the borrowers. So whoever's purchasing the property. So as you mentioned, if there are two people within the household and one of them is purchasing the property and it's their own name that will be on the deed and they'll be the only owner of the property, it's just their income. So when we say household for mass housing purposes, it's the household income for the borrower only.
That's very helpful too. At this juncture, I think that we have a lot of information for people to digest and process. Is there anything else that you want to add that you think would be helpful as people are deciding whether or not they should explore this as an opportunity? I imagine you'd love for them to check out the website because it has a ton of information. But are there other tidbits that you'd like to add to this conversation?
Sure. As you mentioned, the website I think would be perfect. So go to masshousing.com, sign up for our newsletter to receive information about new products and also any helpful tips as you're going through the home buying process as well. Taking a home buyer education class should be really the first step for anyone who's interested. So whether you plan to buy now or in a year from now, knowledge is power. So we'd encourage everyone to attend a first-time buyer class as well.
Okay. Is there anything you'd like to add?
Sure. I agree. The homebuyer education class is an amazing way to kind of get your feet wet. And then I always suggest, even if it might not be right now that you want to buy a house, definitely talk with a lender and just look at what a pre-approval is going to look like for you. Have your credit pulled, look at the income, what assets do you have available, because it may not be right now that you're ready to buy, but you and the loan officer can set up a plan and work towards that goal, whether it be 6 months, 12 months, but just know the numbers that you're working with so that you can, if home ownership is something that you're looking to do, you're prepared to do that when you're ready.
Yeah, I think for me, it's about making sure that there's a fit between the realtor and the consumer. And I think it's important that you get to know the person that you intend to work with. You may want to interview 2 or 3 people. I treat it like any other relationship. The fit needs to be there. And if you feel as though you can't work with that person, you make those decisions early on, because you may be in this for the long haul, and there needs to be a very high level of trust between everyone involved in this process. And if that doesn't exist from the very beginning, if your gut is telling you that that's not a good fit, then I think you need to go out and find somebody that you may be able to work well with. And I think that's a critical piece on every level.
I chuckle. I think that's sage advice because, you always think it's going to be a smooth transaction, but there are very stressful situations because it's your hard-earned money and it's your future. And there's a lot of emotional roller coasters where sometimes timing is of the essence, or there's a miscommunication, or you need last-minute info. And being able to comfortably have a rapport and not have any self-consciousness about that, I think, is critical for a positive outcome.
One of the other things that I think is critically important is making sure that you're working with a professional that is familiar with the area that you're looking in. We have realtors coming from all over the Commonwealth bringing buyers in that are terribly unfamiliar with the communities where their buyers are looking. And I think as professionals and as experts in the field and as advocates for our clients, we need to be able to communicate what's happening within a community, because it may impact their willingness to buy in that particular community. So I think staying local is critically important, and I think some professionals may disagree with me. Some of my realtor associates might disagree with me, but I think that local connection is critically important when you're advocating and consulting with a consumer.
No, thank you for that. I think the most important takeaway was really with how we started this program, which is that mass housing is the state's best kept secret. And hopefully with this introduction, it's a foray into how people can educate themselves. And it seems like on balance, there are almost more people that are eligible than aren't. So the odds are there's something out there for everyone to be able to take advantage of. And I think that's something that we in the Commonwealth can be really proud of, that we're here to support home ownership. So with that, I thank you all very much for participating in this. And I'd love to have you back in the Lower Merrimack Valley for more information for our guests to learn and for us to be able to respond to what is a very tight housing market. So thank you again. We appreciate it.